You are listening to the Liquid Flannel Podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. I'm Chuck Williams. Joining me in Nebraska is Brendan Williams. Brendan, how you doing, man? What's up?
I'm doing good, man. The last 9 months or 9 days since we recorded our episode have been a whirlwind.
Dude.
It's been 900 years since the last time we recorded an episode.
These episodes remind you of your drug days because you totally lose track of time when you're actually producing an episode. It's crazy. It's like podcasting's an anti-drug. Anyways, joining us down in Texas, in Arlington, Texas, is the great Matthew Hodges. Matt, how's it going, bud?
I am looking forward to, on this episode, talking about, some of the reasons that I'm so proud to always be able to report back on the politics and sociology of the great state of Texas. I've got some really uplifting stories for you guys this week.
All I've heard is that all my exes live in Texas, so I'm looking for some good news from my state of birth. And bringing us good news in the form of another great guest, Matt, why don't you let the audience know who we've got on the line this week?
You bet. I mean, it's the inaugural episode for our junior St. Louis correspondent, Alex, who you probably know on Twitter better as... What are you on Twitter, Alex?
I am, and I hate saying it out loud because it's one of those things that 6 years ago made me laugh once, but I am shitshow.info on Twitter.
Yeah, that's right. Shitshow.info, who, man, you're killing it on Twitter all the time. We're so glad to have you on the show.
Yeah, man, welcome.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. This is the first podcast I've ever been on, and I'm a little bit nervous that I'm just going to say something terrible and have it taken completely out of context, and I'll just be like that guy that fucked up on that podcast that one time. So if that happens, luckily it'll be with you guys.
Well, we appreciate sharing your first, but you do have some big shoes to fill because the senior St. Louis correspondent, 50% of the episodes he's recorded with us have featured live gunfire in the background.
Right.
So not saying that you've got big shoes to fill, but we're expecting big things.
Yeah, you gotta bring the heat.
Seriously, you gotta bring that St. Louis fire.
He's okay though. I mean, audience, don't worry about D Black. He'll be back with us.
Shout out to D Black. We love you. We know you'll be back on the show too. So, what do we got this week? Do we got any highlights here? Any previews before we jump in, or all kinds of things seem to be happening? It's like a fire hydrant full of information. But
there's a bunch this week, right? I mean, I had a couple of articles from Texas that I want to go through, including ICE being ICE again, but. Also, I mean the JFK files dropped.
Oh yeah, dude, that's dropping like a hot mic or something.
Oh yeah, Ted Cruz's dad did it all.
Oh, dude,
secrets revealed.
I can't wait.
We all knew the truth.
The inevitability of that Cuban immigrant. Oh my God! Just kidding. Well, we got a lot to go over, so without further ado, why don't we just jump right in?
So now you take that to say, if I ever met with a Russian, I've not been candid with the committee, and I reject that.
Senator Sass.
General, thanks for being here. There was some drama there. Sorry to have added to the drama and distracted you for a minute. I was paying enough attention there that I dumped a Dr. Pepper on Senator Cruz. So that's what was distracting us on this side of the dais.
Yeah, so what do you want to kick it off with?
Yeah.
Matt, dude, what you seem like you actually have something to talk about.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, so on the topic of Ted Cruz in the news, did you guys see the Twitter exchange between him and Ben Sass, where somebody talked about Ben Sass making a joke that Ted Cruz's dad assassinated JFK, and then Ted Cruz shoots back with a screenshot of the Zodiac killer. Like one of the letters he sent to the police,
cryptic messages. Yes,
yeah, man. Ted Cruz is so hashtag resistance now. He's out there liking porn. Dude. He's just making Twitter jokes.
He's making jokes
Ted Cruz
about freaking death and serial murder.
Right, which is like it's so crazy because like even on the left, I have to be like that was actually a pretty good one, Ted Cruz.
Seriously.
Whereas if anybody did that. On the left, the right would be like, look at this guy. Like, he's pro serial killer. Like, what's going on?
Well, but honestly, I think the reality is once you've worked in a call center for raising money for Donald Trump, you don't mind making jokes about murder. I mean, he knows what it's like to seriously be, a late stage capitalist youth right now. So you got to give it to Cruz, but just not when he's filibustering and reading Dr. Seuss and shit.
Right. So. Now, Ted Cruz's social media intern, come on Liquid Flannel. We would love to talk to you. Yeah, absolutely. Send us some gift strategies, some meme advice. We would love it. So
wait, was it Ted Cruz who liked the incest porn on Twitter?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It absolutely. Don't ever forget. Hashtag never forget.
Dude, like the Alamo, there's some things you just don't forget.
That is some great online redemption to go from that to the Zodiac Killer thing.
Yeah, dude, he's doing it. He's turning it around. I mean, I didn't think he had it in him.
Drop a smoke screen, That's how
he's learning that his life is already a meme, and he's playing into it. I mean,
yeah.
And on one hand, yeah, it is hilarious. On the other hand, it's like, man, don't let this motherfucker get away with it. He's awful.
What if Ted Cruz just goes like full Pepe meme lord and just is like, this is a huge voter demo right now, you guys. Like, it's underserved. I'm already the most hated man in politics. Like, why not? Like, what do I have to lose? I'm Ted Cruz.
Guys, I feel like it's almost half beating a dead horse, but it keeps manifesting each week. We're so desensitized in this administration that we literally are like, war crime, dude. Oh, dude, he's adorable. He's endearing right now. I'd love to go have a beer with George W. I mean, if you were the kind of person that had any kind of like self-awareness, you would have to say, man, people actually loved these horrible people because of me.
Right.
Like that's a kind of desensification that I don't think anyone saw this shit coming. So,
well, and Alex, I know that you've been talking about that a lot too. I mean, you spend a lot of time on Twitter doing sort of the political media commentary, the infotainment commentary. So, what's your take on this rehabilitation of George W. Bush? In even among people on the left, not all of them. A lot of them are kind of aware of it and going like, maybe we shouldn't let this happen.
For me, it's really frustrating as someone who, like, the moment that I remember being aware of politics was when George Bush launched the war in Iraq, and just, I remember, even as just like a little kid, I would think I was like 13 or 14 as the war started, and I just remember feeling like no one, even as like that little of a kid, I was like, where's my perspective in the media? Where's the person saying like, this isn't good, we shouldn't be doing this? Especially because even the New York Times was kind of pushing for war in Iraq, and to see George W. Bush get rehabilitated, it feels like kind of a slap in the face to, and I think other people from my generation kind of feel this way too, where it's like, dude, George Bush was like our first bad guy. Like, that's the first time that we were able to start criticizing U.S. imperialism is through George W. Bush. And obviously, like, Trump is a very, very bad person, but you don't need to start praising George W. Bush to criticize Trump. That's kind of been my feelings about it.
Right. And the craziest thing is that they've totally flipped positions, right? Where Trump is out there saying, like, the Iraq war was a huge mistake. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't believe this guy. And it's like, well, you're not wrong on that one, Trump. Like, you might be a horrible person, but yeah, the Iraq war was terrible. But like, I'm sure the Korean war and, the Nigeria war are going great, though.
Yeah.
But people forget. The war, the original war, we were already at war with Afghanistan, right? Where after September 11th, they were like, got to go to war with Afghanistan.
Oh, it's the forever war.
Osama.
I mean, the war just turned, the war could get a driver's license this year. It just turned 16.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there was like already years of war before the Iraq war even started. And he was just like, you know what? We need another war. Like, this war is not going so well. Like, maybe the second war will do better. And it didn't. But the war in Afghanistan is still happening.
Yeah.
It is still going on to this day. Could you ever have imagined back in the day when we went to war in Afghanistan and then we went to war in Iraq that literally 20 years later almost now, it's still happening.
Well, you know what my man Biggie said? War money, war problems.
Well, speaking of more problems too, and you used to be that George H.W. Bush was like, he was the good Bush president. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't as bad as G.W. Bush starting all those wars, you know.
Bad enough to not get another term.
Of the two Bushes that we had, you'd prefer H.W. and not W.
But he hasn't really had a good week either.
No, yeah, like a week ago, he was, it was brought to light that he groped one of his, like, medical workers or something, or somebody that was, like, pushing his wheelchair or some shit, and he grabbed
Isn't
her
that
butt.
such a cliche, though? I mean, like,
absolutely.
Are they keeping George H.W. Bush in, like, a 1970s body, like, hospital? You know, where, like, all the old
like
men are, like,
literal
groping
candy
the pretty young
stripers.
nurses as
Right.
they go by.
In his mind, I'm sure that's exactly what it is.
Right.
They're all making, like, double entendres to each other.
Well, he probably thinks that since it's hospital staff.
He referred to himself as, quote, David Copperfield.
Is that what the joke was? That he
Yes,
said?
that's what he said.
Oh my goodness.
He was
Guys.
like, "I'm David Copperfield." This dude is the president. In the middle of like when the Republicans are trying to be like, Democrats, they're all sexual assaulters out there.
David Copperfield, is that like the disappearing credibility act or something that he does? He's like, now you see it, now you don't.
Isn't it possible to believe that both of the parties have serial sexual assaulters? I mean,
Well, of course.
I can't believe this has become a team sport.
Well, dude, and since we're on sexual assault watch, also this last week was Mark Halperin of was it NBC?
Oh, the Game Change guy?
Yeah. So he's taking some time off from his network deal to
Right. But the difference
work
is
that out.
the difference is when that comes out, this dude's like on the like left-leaning network MSNBC,
Wait.
they're immediately like fire this guy. But on the right, Bill O'Reilly, they're like paying $20 million and then being like, please sign this 4-year extension contract or
Right.
whatever.
I don't want to necessarily say that Mark Halperin is on the left. I mean,
Yeah, good call.
I remember not having a job for a little while and watching a lot of daytime news, like 24-hour news, and just remember hearing things from this dude's face that made me think, I don't know about you, dude.
But he wrote a book that said like Sarah Palin like wasn't that great of a candidate or whatever.
Oh, dude.
And so of course
then he
he's
must
biased.
be leading the left right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
Dude, they're like, are you my daddy? Not a lot of good there.
I was just gonna say
Go ahead.
I think Mark Halperin is either before my time or I just like didn't. I wasn't aware of him. But kind of the weird thing that I saw with how this story broke was that people seemed like a little bit too happy to find out. They were like, "Oh, I knew something was up with this guy," and I don't know, that kind of commentary always kind of, I'm like, something I can't articulate why that feels weird, but there's something weird about somebody being like, I had a feeling this guy was sexually assaulting.
Well, and that's what we've seen through this whole thing, right? This idea that it's like the broken stair theory, where like everybody who hangs out in the house all the time knows that one of those stairs is broken, and you kind of walk around it and you kind of warn friends about it, but you don't ever speak out and go like, hey, maybe we should fix the broken stair. And it seems like that's what's going on with so much of these stories. That, like,
Right.
the Harvey Weinstein thing was like, yeah, everybody knew that he was a fucking creep for decades, and nobody ever actually like came out and did anything about it. That seems like that's the definition of the problem here.
Well, why did the Terry Richardson thing break? Because I thought everybody knew that Terry Richardson was a giant fucking creep and like abused women,
Right.
and then all of a sudden that rebroke this week too.
Yeah, that was, dude. I didn't even know who the hell Terry Richardson was until this week. I mean, it's
Right.
like we're in a stage now for me, and it's because I just didn't pay attention to entertainment, I guess, growing up. But like, we're in a stage now where I'm learning who the hell someone even was as I'm hearing about their sexual abuse allegations or something.
Well, right. And it's like, what's coming out now is like, people are like, oh yeah, this guy sexually abused me like all the time. Or like, this guy's always like being like inappropriate. And then being like, he's previously faced accusations in 2012, 2007, 2003, 2000. It's like,
it's like his player's card or whatever.
Before the show, I was talking with Chuck, and I made a joke about our audio equipment always having static on it, and I made a joke about the movie Powder. And
oh god,
that's a crazy movie from 1995, starring one of the guys from Boondock Saints or whatever as this albino kid with electricity powers. And it was directed by a dude who went to jail for pedophilia in the 80s, and then he gets out and he's literally still directing films to this day. He did the shitty Jeepers Creepers horror movies.
Right.
He's working on Jeepers Creepers 3 right now. And this dude did time. He was in prison.
Not only did he do time for inappropriately touching, but didn't he also have child pornography?
Yes.
Okay. And he only did 3 years.
He was sentenced to 3 years. He did 15 months.
Dude, what the...
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's been unaddressed for so long that it's like, that's why you don't want to like continue to not address these things, because they don't go away.
Right.
And then they're just going to keep coming up over and over again.
I was just going to say that's also got to be, so discouraging to victims of abuse that they're like, well, why would I say anything? Because they've been accused of this so many times and nothing has ever happened. Like, I mean, the fact that like Roman Polanski and Woody Allen are still making movies is a pretty big indication of that.
Well, and what I was going to say was my favorite fucking like news article of all of these was the headline, Woody Allen weighs in on Harvey Weinstein. I think he's being treated unfairly. Like, who gives a shit what Woody Allen thinks about this? Why are you reporting this?
Dude, seriously, you talk about this being the broken stair theory, and I'm thinking about like the whole entertainment news industry as like some Indiana Jones shit, broken stairs, where it's like you don't even think you're gonna get across this bridge shit because everything looks broken as fuck, dude.
Right.
But
that all of Hollywood is the dangling busted ass like rope bridge.
It's like a
dangling busted ass rope bridge theory. You heard it first on Liquid Flannel.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Seriously, I feel like
it's gonna catch on.
I feel an episode title coming through.
Yeah, that's gonna be a really shitty hashtag though. It takes up like half of your characters.
Oh yeah, well, only half as shitty as I'm still with the person that didn't want to be here or whatever we came up with. Hashtag standing outside a broken telephone booth with money in my pocket.
So good.
Just kidding. That's a little primitive radio god shout out
for
all my over 35 crowd out there. So.
This is one of the albums I got in my Columbia Records house.
Yes, dude. Deal. I should have belonged to that CD club. Anyway.
Oh man, let's take a break there and come
absolutely.
back with some more hotness, some more topics.
Yeah. Look, there it is. Forbidden. Let's go back. No, let's get the jewels. Forbidden. The game's Forbidden Bridge. Dare to cross Forbidden Bridge. But if the angry idol shakes it, you can fall to your doom. First to grab the idol's jewels and get to safety wins. But beware, Forbidden Bridge is forbidden. Forbidden. I win! Forbidden Bridge. It's forbidden!
So the Republicans' next plan is to try to pass some kind of a sweeping tax reform. And there was this article that NBC published titled, "The GOP Tried Trump-Style Tax Cuts in Kansas. What a Mess." And the thrust of this article is that when you slash income taxes and like pass through income for corporations and allow corporations to continue to take all sorts of tax breaks for all sorts of stuff, it turns out to be really bad for your budget, and you end up having to cut all of the social programs, like all of them.
Right. Like learning in general.
Absolutely. Especially when you've got them saying, basically, the idea is, hey, once you cut all these taxes, all the businesses are going to be like, oh, if I make my business in Kansas, I don't have to pay any taxes. Like, I should just
can
move
keep
to
more
Kansas.
money.
Right. I get to make more money in Kansas, except you're in Kansas. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's not that great. It's not a huge population hub. You're not necessarily attracting the talent because you're destroying the entire state's economy. And people are like, well, I don't want to move there for my job. Because, like, I heard their schools are all getting closed because they don't have any funds.
There's fields out there, but this is like the reverse field of dreams. It's like, if you slash shit, they will come. Right. And it's like nobody came. These are the fields of nightmares. Oh, that's another good title. Man, I'm coming up with great titles all night. But yeah, the article's crazy. It kind of started making me think about Nebraska because there's a couple graphs in there, and it shows Kansas's neighbors in terms of non-farm employment growth and real GDP growth. And so it's got, 5 states there: Missouri, Arkansas, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma. Kansas is second to last in non-farm employment growth and dead last in real GDP growth. Well, Nebraska is third to last in non-farm employment growth. And then it's doing okay. It's number 2 in real GDP growth.
Missouri's down there too, though, in the Kansas zone.
Right. But the thing is, we can't be just giving away the farm, pun not intended, to these corporations that really aren't going to come in here because they're like, it's a bunch of hicks out there. They ain't going to do shit. They can't do skilled jobs. Just kidding. But I mean, it's like Nebraska just lost, I think it was the Toyota proposed
we
dealership.
Talked about that at the show, actually, as a high note one time. Crushing our high notes again.
Right. Seriously, we're like, hey, we might get this one. This might be the thing. Everything's going to be okay, guys. Never mind.
We really need to stop making predictions because every time we predict a thing on this show, it comes out the worst. We're the monkey's paw of the political process here.
The thing that surprises me of why Kansas has become kind of this case study for it is we've known forever that austerity doesn't work and that it's a bad thing. And there are criticisms of austerity as far back as you want to go. But I think what it shows is ultimately Democrats cannot criticize Republicans from a point of the left that has this history of criticizing austerity, because the Democrats want it too, just to a lesser extent, and want a little bit more social safety net. Right. So I think that's what's been interesting to me about kind of hearing the story bubble up is we've known it doesn't work, at least on the left.
Right.
Well, what about this?
Very good point.
There's even a quote in this article from, Alan Cobb, the president of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, that the Kansas tax experiment wasn't given enough time, that they increased sales taxes at the same time they were cutting income taxes or not too long after then. I mean, that's the definition of a regressive tax policy. You take the tax burden away from income and put it on consumables.
Well, and you've got at the same time what the Republicans are now saying that they want to kind of do on a national level is very similar. And there, of course, the question is well, what are you going to do with all that lost revenue? How are you going to make up for that? And Gary Cohn, the economic director for Trump, is well, we're looking at a gas tax. It's a gas, are you crazy? That used to be the attack on Obama being Obama, these gas prices are too high.
Sure. Is this Mr. Johnny gotta fly my girlfriend to Fort Knox and also look at the eclipse? Or
no,
is that
that's
Steve Mnuchin?
Suicide Squad producer Mnuchin. Right?
Okay, I see the picture of Mnuchin. I'm what the fuck?
They're all buddy. They're both Goldman Sachs guys
absolutely.
too, which is crazy.
Yeah, they've got that primo jet fuel
but
gas,
Brendan, you
so they don't have to worry about a gas
thing
tax.
That if you were to propose a gas tax as a way to make up for lost revenue when you cut taxes for the rich, then people applaud it. But if you do it for another reason, say an environmental, we need to cut down on carbon emissions in
Right.
the country. Then it's this
You
thing that
tree
only
huggers.
like Muslim fascists, communists, whatevers do.
Tree huggers.
Yeah, pro-Chinese economy,
Right.
like dissidents or whatever. So it's pretty messed up.
Yeah,
Well, go ahead.
I think the whole tax situation seems like such a cluster, and I mean, it seems like they're almost desperate enough that they'll probably just pass like anything that they cobble together, just because they're so desperate to just pass anything. But I mean, it really just seems like even if you want them to succeed, they clearly have no idea what they're doing. I mean, they're out there right now saying like, well, maybe we'll cut the tax where you like get to deduct like the money you put in your 401k or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, what? Like, what
Right.
are you even talking about? I mean, their whole position is so indefensible because they're like, well, we got to cut corporate taxes too. Like,
Well, right.
you know, these corporations are out here suffering. But also, did you see the jobs numbers are so great and the stock market's at an all-time high? Like, I'm the best president ever.
Right.
But we need these tax cuts, guys, because
Right.
America is suffering.
Because that's the real way that we can transfer wealth down to the worker is through these tax cuts for the corporation.
Yeah, because that's how it
trickle-down
always
tax
works. Because
cuts.
everybody knows when a corporation has more money, what they immediately do is give everyone a raise.
Right. Well, now there's one dude in the article here, Stephen Moore, the economist from Conservative Heritage Foundation. Probably the first time he's ever been called a dude, by the way. But you know, his counterpoint is that North Carolina is an example of a place where the population and economy have both grown in recent years while the state has slashed income taxes. So he's like, you know, there's a bunch of other factors to do with Kansas. So, hey, it worked in North Carolina, but I don't know. That's because of all the Michael Jordan jerseys selling that year, so he doesn't necessarily know what the truth is. So, you know, I think it could be tied to that. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. If they do get away with somehow squeezing this through in spite of all this evidence, what do you think happens? I mean, we already know what's going to happen to us, but... You know, I'm asking what's going to happen in terms of any kind of accountability, any kind of lessons learned from people. I mean, Kansas is literally like the Wild West now when it comes to any kind of economic prosperity or whatever.
The Wild West also took place during the Gilded Age, you know?
Right. You know, before the Dust Bowl.
I think a kind of good, a surprisingly telling quote was when Steve Mnuchin said, "It's very hard not to give tax cuts to the wealthy." And and I think the Trump administration has been so accidentally honest about, you know, like, yeah, it is hard not to give tax cuts to the wealthy. A lot of presidents do it. And
right.
Yeah, it turns out they kind of run the show. I mean, you are kind of taking marching orders from a group.
And even you mentioned Gary Cohn earlier. Gary Cohn has the best quote to come out of the Trump administration, in my opinion. He said, like, only idiots pay the estate tax when the estate tax was the thing being debated.
Right.
And it's just like these people, you know, tell the truth sometimes in this very strange way that really shows what's going on.
Right.
Like if you can just kind of dig a little bit beneath it or kind of, you know, read it a little bit more cynically.
Read between the lines.
Well, I heard a similar statement from some ranchers that I knew in Montana about the estate tax, that it's actually not that hard to avoid the big estate tax ding if you structure your estate right. You make it a corporation and then you give shares to your kids over years, because you've got every year you can do a tax-free gift to direct offspring, and over time you kind of give them the farm. And so it's the only thing that it affects is things that you can't corporatize, which is literally just like stock holdings and like money sitting in a bank account, you know. And anybody who has land that they want to pass on, the way that they scaremonger, like farmers, you're not going to be able to give your estate to your kids, and they're going to have to sell the farm after you die.
Right.
That's all. I mean, when you've got real property, that's pretty easy to take care of, actually.
Right.
I don't want this shit.
Right.
Anyways.
Like I think I forget if it was MSNBC or CNN, but I was watching cable news recently, and an advertisement came up for literally what you just described, and that was the scenario that they were describing. Basically, it wasn't a farm, but I think it was a house, and a very old man was like, "What the estate tax? Like, this is going to ruin my children." And
right, help! I've fallen and I can't give my estate to my kids.
And he, and then a lawyer or an accountant, I forget exactly what the advertisement was for, but kind of swoops in and is just like, "We can help you out here. Like, we can take care of the estate tax. Don't worry about it."
Did they come in through the window?
Just crashes right in.
They got like the Zorro mask on.
Shit, that's fucking killing me.
Oh man, yeah. And shout out to Jay Shoquist. I was just gonna shout out at Jay Shoquist 3 for sending us this article. By the way, he sent me the article on Monday. But
yeah, we appreciate it. I mean, there's a lot to talk about there. I do want to move on briefly to close out this segment.
Definitely.
Let's talk about Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, and how they are really making the state of Texas proud tonight. We've gotten a report that they plan to abduct and deport this 10-year-old girl who, when she comes out of the hospital for something having to do with, I think, cerebral palsy, they're going to send her back to Mexico. So,
oh man,
I mean, I just want to play, and I'm proud to be an American because at least I know I'm free.
Right. I feel so much. Don't you feel a little bit safer tonight knowing that dangerous criminal is off the streets?
Oh man, seriously, sapping up all my free healthcare.
Right. Oops. Oh wait, we don't even have that.
Right. Oops.
But yeah, I mean, it's
premiums just went up.
I mean, it's insane that literally their message at the same time that they're saying like, well, look, when a guy shoots up a crowd and like shoots 500 people, like that's just the price of freedom,
right.
Dude, seriously,
but,
you're free to die.
When there's a sick 10-year-old and she, has to go to a hospital, so she's on immigration's radar, like you got to wrap that up because America's safety is at stake.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And then you got Trump coming out today saying, hey, if we build the wall, it's going to fix the opioid crisis or whatever.
Of course.
And it's like, how exactly is that? It's like, don't think too hard about it,
man.
Or to any of his supporters either. The only thing to explain to them is just watching their family die over needless bullshit.
The ones who are actually going to burn in the deepest burning pits of hell are the people who surround Trump, who actually do genuinely know better, but they go along with what he's doing anyway because of careerism.
Oh, John Kelly, that's
ideology.
what you mean.
Right.
Fuck that dude.
Speaking of Republicans saying accidentally the truth, Lindsey Graham, so this week was so crazy. So first, Trump's feuding with Bob Corker nonstop, calling him Little Bob Corker on the day he's supposed to go to the Senate and beg for their votes on taxes.
Right.
On the same day, he's feuding with this guy. And then right after the meeting where he begs for their votes for taxes, which he didn't even do. That's what he was supposed to do.
Right.
He just talked about his electoral college victory again or whatever to the Senate like they don't know.
Look at this photograph.
And so he comes out, and then Jeff Flake goes on a tear and says, I'm not running for re-election so that I could say that Trump is the worst human being that I've ever spoke to in my entire life. And then you're like, well, do you mean he should be impeached? And he's like, well, let's not go crazy.
Look, I support everything he does.
I'll still vote for whatever he puts in front of me.
He does it.
Yeah.
Right.
I vote with him 92% of the fucking time.
Right. Why can't he just be more like George W. Bush?
But my children are watching.
Be terrible, but be kind of folksy and charming about it.
Seriously.
But I mean, it's so crazy that he's not even doing the bare minimum of what you would expect if he wanted anything to happen. I mean, he's not even trying on the wall. He talks about the wall or whatever all the time. But it just doesn't make any It just doesn't.
Well,
make
I don't
any
know,
sense.
man. I mean, they are testing out some of those the prototype wall segments down there by like San Diego. NPR was reporting on it, and some of them are just concrete, and some of them are concrete with like upright steel pylons. And I'm really glad that I spent 5 minutes of my life listening to NPR, going like, okay, they're testing out some shit, but still. Broader context, guys, this thing's never going to get built. You couldn't possibly build it. Like every section of this, every 5-foot section of this wall costs $150,000.
Wait, hold on. Did any of those wall prototypes have any kind of see-through capabilities that Donald Trump specifically talked about?
And they certainly didn't have. Any like solar panels attached to them.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. If you're a cartel member and you listen to that speech where Trump's like, dude, they could just throw a 50-pound bag of weed over someone's head. They need to have see-through walls. Well, now, if I'm a cartel dude, he's like, they're not going to be looking for opioids in a 50-pound bag of weed. I could still throw that over the wall. And now the opioid epidemic is back in the U.S.
Foiled us again.
Dude, I feel like sometimes I should be a cartel consultant or something. I used to think I should teach them how to drive in the U.S. so that it wasn't like the following too closely tag that they always get busted for.
Brush up your LinkedIn account. I'm sure that they're on there looking for hashtags. These are professional organizations.
Dude, this is late stage capitalism at its finest.
This is the job creation that the wall is creating, man. I mean, it's good for everybody, but it's a win-win.
2 things I produce: podcast titles and cartel strategy.
Oh man, none of us is ever going to be able to get a job again. We host Antifa, we host Muslims, we talk.
Don't
about
worry, I work in HR. Right.
Well, right. I mean, it's clear that the Trump administration doesn't even check your credentials or whatever anymore.
Oh, sure.
Because they're just, hiring unqualified people like left and right. At the same day he's out trying to declare the opioid crisis an emergency, he tried to appoint like the guy who got like the most opioid like lobbying money in Congress or whatever to head up the like drug
to actually constrict the DEA's ability of enforcing shit. Which basically resulted in like opioids flooding like West Virginia and a whole bunch of places. So you know what, whatever.
I'm so unemployed that I seriously entertained for only a second or two looking at like the Trump job listings, just like out of kind of curiosity, because I think they're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Oh hell yeah!
To hire someone who posts the things that I do on Twitter.
Oh, dude, absolutely.
Right.
Well,
yeah, dude,
and you'd be pretty competent, I can tell.
I heard Melania is having a lot of trouble finding people to design her outfits because so many fashion designers are like, I don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't want my name anywhere near this mess.
Like my 2 favorite interests.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, we need to get in touch for
the
the next election. We got to come up with some liquid flannel shirts. And also some stickers. I think
that if anything, the Trump presidency has proved that politics and fashion are almost the same thing.
Oh heck yeah!
I mean, it's almost like too fitting that he's president. The number of people that predicted it and joked about it and thought that it was so absurd.
Right. Yeah, we're gonna elect the literal gold toilet guy to the highest office in the land.
Right.
Well, right. And a story recently came out that he spent like almost $2 million redecorating the Oval Office or whatever.
Well, I thought that was interesting. Because somebody else pointed out that Obama also spent, it was like $1.5 million refurbishing the Oval Office. So apparently that's a thing.
I believe that is over 8 years, though. That is over 8 years.
America, if you vote for me, I will get all IKEA stuff, and it will literally... It'll cost you $30,000, and you will feel that money back in your pocket.
Yeah, I don't need that Resolute desk. Right. I'm gonna do the the dormitory thing where it's a bunch of 2x4s held up between cinder blocks.
Yeah, a nice little nook.
It's gonna be a loft bed in the Oval Office.
Absolutely.
Oh, dude. Bunk beds. Dude, that's going to be great. With like a futon one at the bottom because we save space.
Dude, if Bernie Sanders gets elected, he's just going to replace like all the furniture in the White House with like cinder blocks and 2x4s.
Ah, dude.
And bird cages.
Oh, man. Right.
He's got to prove that he actually did like that bird, contrary to what people have been yelling at each other about on Twitter all week.
Right.
Yeah, dude, it is crazy that this is one of my favorite Trump facts. He's like the first president in over 100 years to not have ever had a pet in his entire life.
Really?
Never.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I was just about
to say,
did
and fucking killed it.
Has he never had a pet?
They covered it up.
I know he doesn't have one now, but like, what's his history with pets?
He doesn't. Yeah, not only.
Man, I've never seen.
Not only does he not have one now, he has never.
Dog or a cat or anything.
He's a huge germaphobe, and he hates animals.
Oh, I could imagine his parents probably offering him a pet and then him seeing it shit once and being like, I'm done with this. You know? Like, yeah, absolutely.
Well, that reminds me of a thing that I read today that one of the reasons he talks the way he does, even though he did get an upper crust education, is because when he was a kid, none of the other kids wanted to hang out with him. So what he ended up doing was hanging out with a lot of the construction workers on his dad's construction projects.
Right.
Oh, man. Just fully immersing yourself in rape culture and, like, catcalling women and shit,
not to disparage every, like, blue-collar construction worker, but you can kind of trace a line with some of his attitudes, I think.
But you know that you picture the dudes from that $5 footlong Subway commercial, except they're not dancing. They're freaking, yelling like body image, body negativity shit to women. Hey, sweet ass, like that. I'm picturing Donald Trump as an 8-year-old.
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, you got the joke is that his whole personal aesthetic, taking it back to fashion, is like if a poor person had $1 billion, and then it starts to kind of make sense. It's like, he's hanging out with a bunch of dudes who are like, man, if I had your dad's money, I would cover literally everything in motherfucking gold. And he was like, this guy's really cool. I should totally do that.
Dude, this guy says all the right things. Yeah, for sure.
Well, isn't his like bodyguard is from, like, he's known him forever, right? Isn't his bodyguard kind of like that guy?
Oh, he quit. No, that dude quit.
What?
That dude quit.
Yeah.
That was the dude he had deliver Comey's resignation to him by hand, was his personal bodyguard. And then a couple weeks ago, that dude was like, I can't take this anymore.
I wonder who he had deliver his resignation. Did he have like a lesser bodyguard or his own?
He probably...
Like, or did he just have like a homeless guy? I mean, who would you deliver that shit?
He probably made like Reince Priebus do it or something.
Stephen Miller, he made that dude recite it in the most annoying way possible.
He was like,
possible.
Gorka, can you give this to this guy on your way out, please?
Oh, speaking of Gorka, did you hear about him this week? Like, talking about black Africans are the real problems with violence in this country or some shit.
By the bushel-full or whatever, right?
Dude, I would man... He's right, because it's like, if I was in a room with him, like, black rage would probably just seep out of me. Like, and it would be like the most gratifying thing in my life, So
the thing is, Gorka is a literal cartoon character, so even if you like slammed him on the head with something, it would just cause his head to stretch out in funny directions, and then he'd have like the little birds.
He would just get those birds going around to the top.
He would just be like, by Jove!
Right, seriously. He'd be like, this is not cricket,
Gorka's the one that's he's a literal Nazi, right? Like we can obviously say to what extent Trump embodies Nazism, but like Gorka's like the guy that dresses up as like an SS guy, right?
Like card carrying member. Well, he's like, I'm wearing my father's uniform because I'm just trying to honor my father. Right. And you're just like, okay.
My father who belonged to an actual Nazi like sect.
No, right. I mean, it makes perfect sense that he would fit right in with like apparently Trump, who's like called the Confederacy like our glorious heritage.
Yeah, dude. Oh man. Singing Dixie.
Oh, man. Well, what do you say That seems like as good a place as any to wrap up that segment and do a high
let's
note,
get out of
maybe?
this shit.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So my first question is, are you guys ready for the amount of heat that'll be coming your way with this?
I'm talking victory, bro. You've got to see that movie. Not victory like what we're about to do politically all over this country. I'm talking victory. Like, if you want to see a movie, I guess we were talking about movies where you're fighting the Nazis, and some of them are cliche. Watch Victory, known as Escape to Victory, outside the U.S.
This is a soccer film?
It's a soccer film starring Sylvester Stallone and Pele. Pele, the soccer legend, was in this movie.
Sly doesn't strike me as a soccer player.
I believe he's the goalie.
Not too many spoilers, but yes, there's some situations. I mean, basically, it's loosely based off of a game where a team that was predominantly Jewish played against a Nazi team in the World War II era. But so in the movie, it's a team made up.
So it's Hoosiers, just with the Hitler Youth.
Exactly.
Are they Jewish in Hoosiers?
No. And what's fucked up about Hoosiers is that the team that they were playing against was based on the first ever integrated team in Indiana. So it's like, who are you rooting for in this movie?
In real life, my dad went to the school that Hoosiers was playing against. That team was an all-black team, actually.
Right.
And
Holy shit.
And they won state championship the next 2 years after Milan High.
I was going to say like 3 years in a row, right?
And the legend Oscar Robertson played for that team, and he was considered better than Michael Jordan back in the day. And people still have that argument. Yeah, that's a little history for your own.
So we're throwing Hoosiers in the not woke column.
No, it's half woke. I mean, but it's not trying at all to be woke. In fact, it's being woker than the period, so to the point of being disgusting a little bit. Anyhow, but victory, it's like back in World War II, dudes that were playing for soccer teams and stuff, they had to go fight for their country. It's time for you to go fight. They had to put off playing soccer, and they would play it in these prison camps or whatever, POW camps. And this general's like, wouldn't it be great if we could solve our differences with football? And it's like, I bet I could put together a teammate that could take you down. So then it was like the Nazis assembled like this great team to play against these POWs that were former professional players and stuff like that. Sylvester Stallone is trying to find a way to use the game to escape, and you don't know if they're going to escape or play or how good the Nazis are. And it's pretty good. It came out in 1981.
Blast from the past.
There you go. If you want to see how they kicked Nazi butt in the 80s with a football, that's how you do it.
In 1942, the Nazis thought they were sitting on top of the world, never suspecting that they could be toppled in one conflict, the most unusual battle of the war.
It has been decided that a German national team will play a combined team from the prisoners of war of the occupied territories.
That's crazy. Victory, starring Sylvester Stallone, Michael Caine, Max von Sydow, and introducing Pele.
How'd you like to play football against the Germans?
Why not?
I think it's amazing, right? Because Stallone made so many of those ultra-patriotic movies. There was Rocky IV, where it was literally Reagan's wet dream. America punches out the USSR in the boxing ring. And Rambo, which was sort of Reagan's wet dream about, like, what if I didn't have to deal with how we actually lost Vietnam?
Right.
So it totally makes sense that they would have a corresponding sort of Central American sport-based one, except it was us fighting Nazis. Like, we actually won. We won soccer against the Nazis also.
Okay, well, I will say that in the movie, Sylvester Stallone is Canadian.
You could just imagine his authentic accent.
Of course.
Yeah.
And Pele is Trinidadian. But the rest of them are pretty much pretending to be Europeans and stuff. So.
A young Michael Caine.
That's outstanding.
Oh, dude, it's great. You have to watch it. And the jerseys that the POWs wear are bueno. They're awesome. They're amazing. Some of the best jerseys ever. I should get one.
Speaking of amazing movies, there's a really great movie that we just heard about today because our president, Donald Trump, tweeted a great free Twitter ad for it.
Right, because it's produced by his good buddy, Sean Hannity, renowned auteur of film, Sean Hannity.
Isn't that guy part of the fake news media?
Right. It's a fake movie. So.
Is this thank you for your service?
Oh, man, I just found out about that one today. I can't believe that the CIA actually went all in on a movie that's literally called Thank You for Your Service.
Well, but the twist is that they're like, it's not that great, actually. There's a lot of veterans issues that are not being solved.
Right. Yeah, that's actually true. All right, maybe Thank You for Your Service is woke, but the one that Brendan was wanting to talk about probably isn't. What's this movie?
It's probably awoken like a resurrection or something. It's like some Lazarus shit, Brendan.
What is the title? I don't have it pulled up.
So this movie is the new Kevin Sorbo vehicle. Kevin Sorbo, who you'll remember was Hercules on the old like 1990s TV show, who apparently is a super born-again Christian.
Right, he was in God's Not Dead, breakout hit based on the email chain letter or whatever.
A little background on that. God's Not Dead was about a atheist philosophy professor at a liberal Jew-run college. He was super atheistic to the extent of, I think, actually beheading people in the front of his class if they said that they were people of faith. But then at the end of the movie, he gets hit by a car in his dying moments. One of the kids that he excommunicated from the religion of science comes up and is like, do you want me to do last rites? And he's like, oh my God, God is totally real.
The kid goes, what if God's not dead like us? No, just
Right. Well, and the twist is that literally the God loophole is that if right before you die, you're like, oh my bad, God, heads up. And then he's like, oh, you asked for the forgiveness or whatever. So, like, all those murders you did, like...
You said Jesus 3 times.
Come on, yeah. Come on in. Jesus. But this new movie is very different.
Right.
This new one is called Let There Be Light. And do we know much about this movie other than Donald Trump promoted it because Sean Hannity produced it?
Well, stop me if you've heard this one. I believe that Kevin Sorbo plays a grumpy atheist professor who learns a lesson that God is totes awesome. Hashtag God rules on Twitter, everybody.
Oh, dude.
It's my favorite.
It's going to be a summer blockbuster.
As far as I've been able to discern, the plot of this film is he's a professor who kind of advocates for, like, Jesus should have been aborted. I mean, that's literally a joke among, like, if you're so in favor of women's rights, you probably think that, like, Jesus should have been aborted, which I've never seen in the wild. I've never seen anyone sincerely say that until this film.
If that is the plot of the movie, it is hilarious because Jesus should have been aborted or whatever. It's like, yeah, man, that would have been horrible. Like, can you imagine somebody would want to kill Jesus? Like, what kind of sick person would want Jesus to die? Oh, wait, what actually happened to Jesus?
Oh, right, yeah.
Right.
I never actually finished that book.
Right.
It's really long.
I'm just saying the resurrection is a little bit less impressive when it's an infant. Like, literally can't, like, walk around and talk to people and be like, Peter, you doubted me 3 times, but look at this.
Right.
It's like Boss Baby.
The IMDb plot synopsis of this film, because it literally doesn't have a Wikipedia page yet, which I thought was impossible. For all his far-reaching fame, Sol Harkins, the world's most famous atheist, because that's a thing.
Oh, dude.
Is a lonely soul and a lousy part-time dad. After a near-death experience challenges his simplest assumptions about this world, Sol finds his purpose and reimagines his life in a film that will make you laugh and cry and want to stand up and cheer.
Clinically dead in the ambulance for 4 minutes. It's a miracle.
I saw Davey, and all I wanted to do was just, I wanted to put my arms around him. I don't know what to do with it.
You've gotten the best scientific explanation. It hasn't brought you any comfort. Would you consider consulting a different source?
Jesus gets whacked, right?
Well, I've never exactly heard it put that way, but yeah.
Follow me here. This ain't brain surgery.
Did you know in that film that world's most famous atheist is actually an elected position? I'm just calling it. We'll see.
I don't remember registering for a primary for the vote on who's the world's most famous atheist.
Well, because if you were registered independent, you weren't allowed to vote.
Party politics, man.
If
It's
you're
awful.
registered agnostic.
Exactly.
I can't wait till this movie makes about like $15 at the box office, and then they like.
Well, no, that's the thing. That's what's really ugly about this, right? So God's Not Dead had a budget of like $1,700, and it ended up grossing like $60 million at the box office, because what they do is they'll buy tickets in bulk from
for
old
churches
folks'
or
homes,
whatever, right?
and then that's your outing for the day.
The mega church, right?
You drive down there and you watch God's Not Dead, and then every once in a while Dinesh D'Souza comes by on a book tour, and he's like, "Oh, I liked that movie too."
Oh man.
Well, you got to do something to counteract all those atheist movies out there. Like, can anybody like literally name one movie about atheism?
Well, no,
Yeah,
we
you
talked
know,
about
like-
that on a previous episode, right? The criticism of the new Alien movie and how it's actually about atheistic message of materialism and that like men and women are actually equal to each other.
That's the Alien movie?
Alien, what's that new one? Covenant, I think, where
Prometheus
one
or
of the big messages, apparently, according to like Focus on the Family, is that movie, because aliens impregnate men, it's saying that like women aren't special, that men and women are equal in a bad way.
What a twist.
Forced feminization from aliens. Dude, that's about as liberal as it gets. No, I'm just kidding.
This is the future liberals want.
Right.
I had no idea that the Alien movies were feminist propaganda, but I guess it makes sense now.
Dude, seriously.
I, for one, hail our robot suit feminist overlords.
Really?
I'm ready for the robot takeover for
Dude,
sure.
how sexist of you to vote for a
did you
robot
see-
over a woman.
Did you see they gave a robot woman citizenship in Saudi Arabia?
I heard about that. Are they going to allow her to drive or some shit? Or what?
Dude, that's the joke, is that Saudi Arabia made a robot, and they unveiled the robot, and the robot looks kind of female, but it's not wearing a headscarf, which if you're out in public, you have to wear a headscarf in Saudi
Right.
Arabia. And they're like, this robot literally has more rights than women in
Right.
Saudi Arabia. It's a robot. I mean, that's the future that Trump wants, I think.
Dude.
I just Googled it because I saw like little bits and pieces of it, but I wanted to catch up with it. And the first headline that comes up is so good. It says, a robot that once said it would, quote, destroy humans.
What?
Just became the first robot citizen.
What's the deal with this? Like, does this robot have artificial intelligence, or was it just like regurgitating some shit it heard like a parrot?
No, that doesn't exist now. Of course, it's just regurgitating whatever somebody feeds to it. That one Twitter bot that launched, or a chat bot or something, and it was supposed to be this big learning algorithm, and within hours it had learned to say like, "Hi, I'm Stacy. I hate the Jews, and like all black people should die."
That was a Microsoft. I can't. It had such a stupid name. I wish I could remember it. But yeah,
so
they
good.
launched it. But literally, the way the bot was programmed was just, hey, start tweeting stuff at this bot, and then it'll learn how to talk by all the stuff that you tweet at it. Did you really not?
Right.
Did you not think about that for like a 15-minute meeting that you were like, all right, guys, it's time to go live with the chatbot? Like, are we sure we thought through every scenario here?
Right.
You know,
it's
but
all good.
They can't think of that shit up in those like high-rise boardrooms and stuff. I mean, they're just not in that world. They're in a different level. So.
Well, yeah, it's because the people who plan the technology that we use never use the technology that we use. And that's so obvious from every single social network that you could possibly be on.
Or they never have interacted in that technology with Joe Blow from frickin' Kansas or Arkansas or Nebraska or whatever, you know. It's like, they're like, wait, what?
So are
There's
you saying
racism on the internet?
Right. So you're saying that maybe the CEO of one of those companies should like go on a Midwest tour and see the real America or something?
Dude, seriously. Except
It's like Undercover Boss, but undercover racist.
If they did an Undercover Boss episode with Zuckerberg, it would be the greatest episode of all time.
Oh, dude.
I can just picture him wearing like a cartoony guy on the pizza box, like Italian mustache, trying to hang out like in the back room of a diner. Like, are you telling me that your hamburger patties don't get delivered by drone?
There was a clip of Zuckerberg giving a talk or a Q&A somewhere, and some girl said like, oh, like what's a mistake you made or something like that. And he was like, look, I make mistakes just like everybody else, you know. To make a mistake is human, and I used to be human. Or like I still am, but like, you know, I'm changed now or whatever. I've grown.
I'm made.
Yeah. It's like, oh geez. Oh, he let it slip like it was an accident. But you're almost like, if he was a secret robot, that's just what would throw us off the trail. You know what I mean?
Making a folksy joke about how I used to be a human being. Man, Isaac Asimov wrote about this.
Oh, man. Well, that's about as high as this high note can get, I think, here. But, yo, man, we wanted to say thanks, Alex, for joining us. Where can the audience find you again?
I live on Twitter.
Okay.
He has transcended the old flesh. You know, long live the new flesh.
Well, shout out that Twitter home.
I am shitshow.info spelled out. So DOT spelled out on Twitter.
Do you have that domain too?
It's a very unfortunate story. I do not. And a friend of mine was going to buy it for me for my birthday. He texted me on my birthday and he was like, I was going to get you your domain name, but like it's not available. And I was like, what the fuck? Because it had been available for so long that I just never bothered. And I looked it up, and it's some guy that lives like a half hour away from where I live now. And so if you're listening and you own my domain name, maybe consider just directing it to a tweet of mine or something.
Right.
Otherwise, Liquid Flannel is just going to peel off a chunk of the Patreon to buy shitshow.info back for Alex.
That's right. We're going to make this a community cause here.
Right after we get liquidflannel.com from that guy posting like old Santa Claus ads.
Oh, yeah, dude. That was some crazy stuff. We got to find out if that dude's still alive, man. Or resurrect him to get that domain, you know?
We got to get Kevin Sorbo on this.
Seriously, that's going to be a great show. We're going to hash out that screenplay pretty soon here. But in the meantime, you could follow us on all of those internets. You can find us on YouTube, follow our Facebook page, Twitter page. You can follow us on...
Like us on iTunes. It helps get the word out.
Like us, give us a rating on there. Absolutely. We appreciate any feedback whatsoever. And you can follow us individually on Twitter as well. You can find me at Shaggy2Trope. Brendan, where can they find you?
I'm at Brendan Williams with one L.
And Matt, where are you at?
I'm at Matt the Gwait with the W.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, Alex.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thanks.